that you, Linda? Is it Bonnie's?
Bonnie's. It's 7:01.
Oh, we can go? Okay. Meeting will come to order. Please take your seats. Thank you. As you know, every town meeting is called pursuant to a warrant issued by the Board of Selectmen. So we begin by reviewing the return of service of the warrant. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Littleton qualifying to vote in the elections and town affairs to meet in the Charles Forbes K Gymnasium, Littleton Middle School, 55 Russell Street in said Littleton, on Monday, the 4th day of November, 2013, at 7 o'clock in the evening, by posting a printed copy of this warrant by you attested at 8 meeting houses: at the Town Office Building on Shattuck Street, at the Post Office at Littleton Common, the Post Office at Littleton Depot, at the Baptist Church, the Unitarian Church, at the Catholic Church, at the Congregational Church, and at the Mormon Church, in said town 7 days at least before the 4th day of November 2013, then and there to act upon the following articles. And I find that the warrant for this special town meeting was properly executed by the Board of Selectmen and also properly served by Constable John M. Kelly, and we are in session. I hope that when you came in, you had the opportunity to, as you checked in, to get a copy of the town meeting report, which is kind of the newsprint handout of tonight's warrant and tonight's motions. Also, in addition to that, I should mention that was also mailed to you at home, so I hope that most of you had the opportunity to bring that with you, but if you didn't, we have copies of that. In addition to the report, there's a single yellow sheet containing an update to the town meeting report, and you'll see on the update sheet that 2 of the 16 articles are being withdrawn. That is, no motion will be offered for Articles 1 and Article 6 this evening. And you'll also note that Article 4, the report indicated a 2/3 vote was necessary, a 2/3 majority. In actuality, it's a simple majority vote, and we'll reiterate that when we come to that portion in the warrant. The real substance of the one-page update is Article 10, the proposed zoning amendment regarding motor vehicle and vehicular retail sales. The text of that motion varies from what was originally printed, so it'll be the information on the yellow sheet that you'll need to focus on when we come to Article 10. The Planning Board will have a report for that article as well. Just a few ground rules before we get started. Non-voters are seated in the rear in the bleacher section. We have a few of them tonight, including one of my fellow moderators visiting from the town of Stowe, and I told him I hope you don't expect to learn too much from me this evening, but happy to have you here, Mr. Walrath. Just the basic guidelines are that if you wish to speak to an article, please come to the center microphone. Please wait to be recognized by the moderator. All questions to town officials should be directed through the moderator. No one gets a second bite of the apple until everyone who wants to speak for the first time has been heard from. Simple amendments can be verbal. More complicated amendments to motions need to be in writing. We're hoping that things are sufficiently clear tonight that won't be the case. All right, before we get into the substance of the warrant, it occurred to me earlier today that most of the town officials, particularly those that are at the head table here, know one another and have for many years, but I know we have some newcomers to town meeting, and I thought it might be useful if we asked everyone sitting up front here to briefly introduce themselves so that everyone out there knows who's sitting up here. So why don't we start with you, Mr. Doucette, and we'll go down the table, Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, Town Council, and then we'll do the Finance Committee.
Good evening, Ted Doucette, Board of Selectmen.
Joe Knox, Board of Selectmen.
Jenna Brownson, Board of Selectmen.
Alex McCurdy, Board of Selectmen.
Jim Carr, Board of Selectmen.
Keith Bergman, Town Administrator.
Tom Harrington, Town Council.
All right, and over here, we'll start with filling in tonight for Town Clerk Diane Crory is Linda Lord.
Linda Lord.
Bonnie Holston, Finance Director.
Paul Glavy, Finance Committee, and we did actually invest in name tags, but nobody thought to bring them, so next time we'll try and remember that.
Brian Tarbox, FinCom.
Alan McRae, FinCom, representing the Assessors Department.
Betsy Bowling, FinCom.
Fred Faulkner, FinCom.
Chris Hinckley, FinCom.
Okay, thank you very much. The reason that our Town Clerk, Diane Crory, is not here is that she has been coaching the Littleton High School girls field hockey team this afternoon, and I've been informed that they won 2-1. So congratulations to the high school field hockey team. All right, and before we get started, last thing, we at our last town meeting, we reinstituted the concept of the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting. So if I could ask everyone to rise, we'll recite the pledge. And actually, if I could ask Mr. Vella of the school committee to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we are in session. We'll turn now to the business of this town meeting. Article 1, bills of prior years. The selectmen have no bills from the prior fiscal year, and they've asked us to withdraw that article, so we, in effect, will withdraw it by not offering a motion. So we're going to pass over Article 1, and Madam Clerk, please indicate in the record that no affirmative action was taken on Article 1 this evening. Thank you. We'll move to Article 2. This is, again, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. It is the funding of a collective bargaining agreement. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $14,171 to fund the collective bargaining agreement reached between the town and AFSCME Council 93, Local 1703, the Highway Department Union. You'll note that the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen support Article 2. Board of Selectmen, Selectman Carr.
Hello. This is the last union of the four in town for a collective bargaining agreement. It's a 3-year contract. There is no cost of living, and it also implements a new comprehensive sick leave policy. Our last town meeting, we approved the other 3 unions. I suggest that we do too. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to Article 2? Okay, if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? The ayes have it. I declare it passed by a unanimous vote. And please so record, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. We'll now move to Article 3, which pertains to fiscal 2014 budget amendments. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to amend the FY 2014 operating budget as adopted pursuant to Article 4 of the May 6, 2013 annual town meeting by adjusting budget line items as follows. And you'll see a table that follows which indicates which line items are being adjusted by which amounts. I will now turn to the Board of Selectmen for an explanation of the article. Selectman McCurdy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. From time to time, the town makes adjustments in the current operating year. This year, essentially what this does is take a one-time snow and ice surplus and fund the items that you have listed before you. In that is funding for a study for the Historical Commission for the Long Store. I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak to any portion of the motion under Article 3? If you do so, please come to the center microphone. If not, we'll proceed to a vote, and I'll remind you that it requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it a vote. Please indicate that it was a unanimous vote. Madam Clerk, thank you. We'll move on to Article 4, which is the funding of FY 2014 capital items from available funds. You'll notice on the update sheet that that a simple majority vote is required, not a two-thirds vote, as was in the original handout. Simple majority vote. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to transfer the sum of $65,000 from the PEG funds account and raise and appropriate the sum of $120,000 to fund the projects listed in Article 4. And you'll note that the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the LCTV Advisory Committee all support Article 4. For the Board of Selectmen, Chairman Doucette.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As you can see in your handout, that these are going to be funded by existing balances. There is no impact on the levy limit or the budget. LCTV is going to purchase equipment to better carry some other town meetings rather than just the ones that they do now. They're going to expand their coverage as recommended by the Study to Increase Voter Participation Committee. And those are paid from franchisees. And the public radio upgrades are going to be to just upgrade an antiquated copper line, and that's paid by unexpended snow and ice removal funds from previous year.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard with respect to Article 4? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries by a unanimous vote. And thank you very much. And now we'll move on to Article 5, again sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. This has to do with the Littleton 300th Planning Committee. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be expended by the Tercentennial General Planning Committee to fund the 300th anniversary celebration for the town of Littleton in 2014. And you'll note that the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Tercentennial General Planning Committee all support Article 5. Selectman Knox?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As we all know, 2014 is going to be an exciting year in the town of Littleton for our 300th anniversary. About 2.5 to 3 years ago, the Board of Selectmen set up the original Tercentennial Committee to arrange for our celebrations. Since that time, we've probably added on 100 volunteers who have worked all this time on these special events coming up. We also have, besides the committees being set up for each of these events, we also have a publicity committee, outreach committee that are helping out, and there's probably going to be a number of smaller events that happen. Some of them will be privately run. The major events for that for next year start on June 21st with the opening ceremony. July 12th, a picnic right in this area. September 6th, we will have our parade, which will start around St. Anne's and end up where IBM is right now with a viewing stand at Littleton Common. That night, September 6th, we will have our fireworks at the Neshoba ski area. September 13th, we have our grand ball at the Westford Regency. And the closing ceremony, that's on the 12th of, I have the wrong date on that, it's at the end of September. What we're looking for right now, fundraising has started. It looks like it's going to be very strong. There's a committee set up, and I'm going to let the chairman of the 300th go through that. But what we're looking at right now, there's a number of contacts we've made, a number of contracts that have been made that are now calling for some kind of down payment. I know that I'm one of the members of the parade committee, and right now we have certain bands that have said yes, they definitely will make the trip to come to Littleton, but they want some kind of contract and they need a certain amount of money. So we're at that point, so we're looking for hopefully just operational funds right now that will be taken care of later on with our fundraising. And through you, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to have the opportunity to have our chairman, Mr. Jack Homer, speak on this.
Okay, certainly. Mr. Homer?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and Joe, for those great words. 2014 is going to be a great year. There are a lot of people that have volunteered their time to make this a year to remember. And part of that celebration starts this Sunday. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Apple Smash, which is coming up at the Boxborough Host Hotel over in Boxborough, starting at 7 o'clock Saturday night. It's going to be a great time. There's going to be a live band. There's going to be dancing. There's going to be refreshments. Souvenirs are going to be handed out, giveaways, and there's going to be a live auction and a silent auction. Similar to what the community boosters used to run here in town. I would hope there is a charge for it. There is a table out front to get tickets, and we certainly hope that the people here will support and help that. That is going through the Friends. We have set up, you have to understand that we are a town committee. We can do certain things, but we can't do a lot of things. And that's why we have what we call a Friends Committee. It's not related to our committee. There are no common members or anything else. But they are going to do various fundraising things. They have already had the Patriots raffle, and PJ can tell us about that. He was one of the 4 winners, and he attended yesterday's Patriots game and had a great time. But he said that, it stayed local. And that was the first thing they did. Now the Apple Smash, they're going to have things all during the year as fundraising events for us. And that's very, very important. The big thing that the committee is doing from the fundraising standpoint are the signs. And you've seen one across from the post office now, that portrays the whole celebration. But on every light pole in town, we can erect a sign. And those signs are going to be sold to individuals, but mostly to businesses. And those businesses will have an opportunity to get their logo put up on those signs. Those signs will be up, those pole signs will be up from April through October approximately. At the end of that time, the person who has purchased the sign will get the sign as a memento in as is. We live in New England, as is condition. So understand that is that's the main fundraising effort by the committee. Naturally, we're going to look for just outright donations. We may send out a letter to everybody in Littleton saying, hey, if you'd like to be a part of it, you can be. There's 3 of us that are going to concentrate strictly on the fundraising. Joe Knox, Deb LaFlamme, and myself. We've split it up. We're going to talk, because we're talking about assigning poles. In other words, when you give us the money, the pole is yours for that period of time. So we don't want to get an overlap and everything else. So the 3 of us are going to be doing that fundraising. Basically, that's it. You know, go to littleton300.org. You can see all the names, the addresses, see everything that goes in it. One thing I didn't mention, on the 14th of this month, we're having an open meeting. This would be all the committees, the 300 committees, but anybody from town. It's an open meeting, as all our meetings are. You can come to the new building behind the electric light department, the NEPA building, as we call it, and at 7 o'clock, and we're going to unveil everything, including the new memorabilia. And I didn't mention that. The memorabilia, in a very limited number of items, and we want to make them good. We want to make them good quality, but memorable items that will showcase starting at the Holiday Bazaar here in this building on December 7th, I think it is, December 7th. So that's it. Does anybody have anything they would like to add? Any questions they'd like to?
Hello, my name is Anna Mayer. I live on Juniper Road in Littleton. I was just wondering why the Westford Regency was chosen for the ball and how much that costs, because I would think it may be more appropriate to have the ball somewhere in Littleton, because that would support our town and the businesses in our town. Or even have it in a gym or the high school. This is a perfect room for a ball, and it won't cost as much as the Westford Regency. So I would strongly suggest that be an option or to be considered. Thank you.
One thing, talking about the committee, we split the committee up, and we've got, the ball has one person in charge of it. Kathy, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Knox. I'm chairman of the ball committee. We have a committee of 8 members, and we've been meeting for about 2 years now. We tried our hardest to find a venue where we could have it in Littleton, because we felt it should be in Littleton as well. Unfortunately, because of the overwhelming support we've already had from different people that want to attend, we know it's going to be a very well-attended event. We were looking for a place that could accommodate between 700 and 1,000 people so that we weren't excluding people. So the Westford Regency has agreed that, unfortunately, we don't have a hotel in Littleton, but the Westford Regency has agreed that they'll keep the tent up. We have the grand foyer, and we have the grand ballroom, which will accommodate up to 1,000 people.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Richard Crowley. In 1964, I drove through town and I saw all the men wearing beards, like Amish country. What was the story behind that, and will men in town be required to grow beards?
Well, I'm sure that's a fascinating story. I don't know if we quite have time for it. Mr. Homer, just very briefly?
Very briefly, we left that to the Red Sox.
Okay, thank you. I'll redirect your attention to the motion under Article 5, and I'll actually read it again because it's been a few minutes. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be expended by the Tercentennial General Planning Committee to fund the 300th anniversary celebration of the town of Littleton in 2014. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed. Okay, the ayes have it. It passes by the necessary majority. In fact, it was a unanimous vote by my reckoning, and please so record, Madam Clerk. Thank you. Article 6 is being withdrawn by the Board of Electric Light Commissioners, so we will pass over that article. Madam Clerk, please record that no affirmative action was taken on Article 6. Moving on to Article 7. Actually, both 7 and 8 are easements that, because they involve an interest in land, require a two-thirds majority vote. And the first of which is a Russell Street sidewalk easement. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 7 as printed in the warrant. The Board of Selectmen supports Article 7, and Selectman Knox will introduce this article.
This article just authorizes the town to allow the Board of Selectmen to enter into an easement that would allow 75 square feet, a very, very small parcel. On that map, it would be at the very, very end where Great Road meets Russell Street. It will be part of the sidewalk plan that will go down Russell Street, but we need to obtain 75 square feet to get that started.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who, or anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 7? If not, we'll proceed to a vote, and I'll remind you that it requires a two-thirds supermajority. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 7, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. It passes by the necessary two-thirds, as it was a unanimous vote. And Madam Clerk, please so record. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Article 8. Again, an easement that requires a two-thirds vote. Russell Street aerial utility line and pole easement, to be specific. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 8 as printed in the warrant. And the Board of Selectmen support Article 8. And Selectman Knox, if you would explain the article.
This article, just like you said, Mr. Moderator, is much like the other article that's at the end of the road. This is 150 square feet. It'll allow power lines to go over that area. It allows for a telephone pole or power pole to be put in there with a guideline going down. And it's all part of the preparation for the improvements along Great Road.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 8? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. And I'll remind you that it requires a two-thirds majority. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 8, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. It passes by a unanimous vote, thereby satisfying the two-thirds vote. Thank you. We'll move on to Article 9. This is sponsored by the Cemetery Commissioners, transfer of land to the Conservation Commission. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 9 as printed in the warrant. And you'll note that the Cemetery Commissioners, the Board of Selectmen, and the Conservation Commission all support Article 9. Selectman Carr?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is approximately 7.2 acres that the Cemetery Commissioners want to transfer over to the Conservation Commission. It has a vernal pool on it, and they would like the commission to take stewardship.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak either in favor or against Article 9, transfer of land to Conservation Commission? It does require a two-thirds majority since it involves an interest in land. If not, we can proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The motion passes by a unanimous vote, thereby satisfying the two-thirds vote. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now turn to Article 10, which is a zoning bylaw amendment sponsored by the Planning Board, and I would remind you again to please refer to your yellow one-page handout with regard to Article 10. All right, moved and seconded by the Planning Board that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaw of the town of Littleton as follows. And I won't read what follows because you all have the handout with the 6 new sections of the zoning bylaw. And at this point, I'll call upon Mr. Montanari, the Planning Board, to give us the Planning Board's report.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Planning Board held a public hearing on this article and voted unanimously to endorse it. And what we're trying to do here is to remove the motor vehicle retail sales out of the village district, just allow it in the business and industrial A and B districts. So if you look down on the yellow sheets, we've redefined what a vehicular auto sale is, where it is allowed, where it isn't allowed, and we'll answer any other questions you have on this, but what we're trying to do now is no more car dealerships in the common area.
Okay. Did you state the vote? Did I miss that, Mr. Montanari?
The Planning Board vote was unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Crowley?
Richard Crowley from the Planning Board. I'm the one that sponsored this article. I've been on the Planning Board for about 6 years, and it seems like any time I get into a conversation with somebody about protecting the town or planning for protecting the town, it always comes around to why do we have a car dealership right where we wanted to, right where our most important real estate is, our heritage. And so it's just a matter of time before it was this came to be, and my hope is that we'll get the 2/3 majority here. We have in 2010 we put protective guidelines in place for that section of town, and with the hopes of making it a pedestrian-friendly environment. So to eliminate services or businesses like car dealerships just from that section of Route 119 will help ensure that we'll have a pedestrian-friendly environment along that route. Now, it doesn't stop homeowners from selling cars on their front lawn, and it doesn't stop car dealerships from occurring in other places in town where it's business owned or industrial zoned. It's only in that very limited district. So a vote yes means there'll be no car dealerships. A vote no means status quo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Before I open up the floor to debate, I know that the Board of Selectmen met earlier this evening. Chairman Doucette, does the Planning Board, I'm sorry, does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation regarding Article 10?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the board did unanimously vote to support this article.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the floor is now open. Comment, debate. Attorney Gould?
Cheryl Gould, 80 Tehadawon Road, Littleton. I'm not really in favor of this article for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is that this became a knee-jerk reaction to prevent a particular auto dealer from expanding, and I don't think it's a well-baked or a well-thought-out article. One example is because I think it was submitted about 2 weeks before the warrant closed, and you can see that it's not well-baked because it's almost completely rewritten by the time we got to this meeting. But the most important thing is that the Moran car dealership was approved by the Board of Selectmen. It bypassed all of the other boards. So this is an effort, I think, by the, I'm sorry, it was approved by the Planning Board. It bypassed all other boards. And I think it's an effort by the Planning Board to make amends for what a lot of people have considered a mistake. The reality is, Bob Moran's property is the nicest looking property in downtown Littleton right now, whether you like it or not. It's beautifully landscaped and maintained, and he puts a lot of money into that as well as into the town. The reality is, all of the buildings in downtown Littleton are falling into a state of emptiness and disrepair, making this look like a ghost town. And if you try to pass a zoning article for a type of use, I think you make a huge mistake and you open the door to us zoning uses, specifically in certain areas, and to me that's spot zoning. This article is written just as a dig against Mr. Moran's facility. If you don't want auto dealerships downtown, take a little time to write it properly. Make sure you don't come to town meeting with a page long of amendments to it. And make sure you don't exclude things like the small gas stations that are trying to sell a couple of used cars to supplement their livelihood, because they all exist down there and they all have needs to keep in business. Thank you.
Jared Opioid, New Estate Road. I was debating whether to even speak on this, but I went to the hearing with the planning board. I had some concerns about the way this thing was written. God, was it going to prevent somebody from selling a car off their own yard? These amendments that Sherry refers to are actually pruning out restrictions. Originally, they wanted to outlaw auto parts stores. Now they're focusing on car dealerships, and the question is, worst case, you could get another dealership in there, and do you want it to be Littleton's version of the Auto Mile? It's pretty straightforward here as to what they're limiting, and of course you can limit use. That's what zoning's all about.
Okay, thank you. Board of Selectmen?
I'd just like to speak, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to speak about the previous comments. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction by the planning board. As a selectman, I worked with Rich Crowley, had a few conversations with him about this, and attended one meeting to support him and to support this article as a resident and as a selectman. It's not against just one dealership, it's against all dealerships. And as previously said, that I think was erroneous, that it does not stop gas stations and existing uses from selling vehicles. They cannot, the sale of vehicles cannot exceed what their current use is. So if you have a gas station, you can't shut down your pumps and become a dealership. That's a change in use. But if you have a gas station and you want to sell a couple cars, if you fix them up, you end up with a car, you want to put a for sale sign in the window, in the windshield, you can do that on the common now.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir?
Bob Stetson from Goldsmith Street. I'm going to give you a gut reaction. I really have a problem with beginning to start to negotiate and to restrict businesses in this way. And if you're going to do it, I would rather you restricted Market Basket from coming into the park facility 3 miles from another Market Basket and ruining Donlands. That seems to me more sensible than this does.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir?
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. I'd just like to know why this ordinance would brought forward to change the freedom that people have as enterprise here to do business in this town. I don't see anything up there that's making Littleton look bad. I think it's improved downtown, and I think to restrict someone, Mr. Moran certainly has put a lot of money in this town, and if you're backpedaling because he put this car dealership in here, then I think that just tough luck for those that don't want it there. I think as a taxpayer in this town, I think that we need a little bit of commercial and industry in this town to get a little bit of the burden off of the taxpayers back here, which is primarily the support of this town budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
One of the big difference between a car dealership and Market Basket. Market Basket is a grocery store. A grocery store is retail. That's allowed. And whether you like to shop at Market Basket versus Donlands or vice versa, retail is retail. The big difference between a car dealership and a grocery store is size. You go down and, yes, Mr. Moran's building is beautiful, but when you look at that whole facility, what does it go? A couple of tenths of a mile between the buildings, the lots, that's large scale. And do you really want something like that on the other side of the road? Worst case, and you really have to look worst case, you could end up with Littleton Common ending up with 3 or 4 car dealerships, one right after the other. You're really limiting a very specific use in the same way that we outlawed asphalt plants a number of years ago. It's no different, and it's well within the realm and the spirit of zoning to set these type of rules and restrictions. I'd support this in a heartbeat.
Yes, ma'am.
Jen Stack, Bulkley Road. I'm very concerned to think about more large car dealerships, and this is nothing against Mr. Moran. I think he does a beautiful job keeping up his property, but there's no such thing as a small car dealership. And another car dealership entering our town in these zones that are mentioned specifically in this amendment would radically change the tone of our town. And if you want that, if you want 119 in Littleton to look like 119 in Acton, go for it. It's not what I want in my town.
All right, Mr. Crowley?
Yes, I want to just mention that this was not a knee-jerk reaction. As I stated in my opening remarks, I've been on the planning board for almost 6 years now, and since the time I got on there, practically everybody I talk to reminds me of the fact that they don't want to see any more car dealerships. So this was time. And the second thing I want to bring up is that when we moved to Littleton over 30 years ago, you had to pass by a working farm to get into town. And what I want to try to do with this proposal is keep this town from becoming the town where you drive by a car dealership on the way into town. We have one right now coming in from the east. We have one coming in from the north. This will prevent one from coming in from the west. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're joined by our town clerk now, fresh off the battlefield. And I suspect we're ready for a vote. I don't suppose we're going to get a unanimous voice vote, so I think we're going to do a hand count on this one. I'll require 2 or 3 people to help us with the count, so if someone could volunteer for that. Okay, Cheryl, thank you. And 1 or 2 others would be great. Mr. Terrell, thank you. Yeah, especially tonight, it won't be so hard to count. Okay, we've got 3. Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion as read and as presented in the yellow handout entitled Town Meeting Update, Report Updates, please signify by raising your hand and leaving it held aloft until you're sure you've been counted. Okay, did we get the front? All right. All those opposed, please raise your hand, and again, keep it held aloft until you've been counted. Warren didn't get them, no. Has he got two? All right, if you give us a moment to tally the results. Is there anyone who thinks they were missed in the count? Okay, thank you. It's a 2/3 majority vote necessary because it's an amendment to the zoning bylaw. So it requires a 2/3 vote. All right, there were 113 votes cast. 75 votes is necessary for 2/3 majority. There were 82 votes in favor, so the motion carries, and I declare it a vote. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Article 11. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 11 as printed in the warrant. This has to do with establishing an enterprise fund for the Park Recreation and Community Education Department. You'll note that the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Park and Recreation Commission all support Article 11. Board of Selectmen, Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is a recommendation by our auditors that come in and audit our books every year. We currently have a revolving fund, and it's just a conversion to the enterprise fund.
Okay, I should have said at the outset, this requires a simple majority vote. Is there anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 11? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to Article 12. Again, this is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. It has to do with other post-employment benefits and a trust fund for such benefits. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 12 as printed in the warrant. So it's as printed in your handout. For the Board of Selectmen, Chairman Doucette.
This is a little complex, so I'm just going to read it straight from here. It's Article 12 authorizes the town to establish an irrevocable trust to fund the town's obligations regarding retiree health insurance benefits called other post-employment benefits. Since 2010, when the town established its OPEB fund, changes to Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 20 require OPEB to be segregated from all other town funds by establishing a separate trust. This trust protects the funds from the claims from any general creditor of the town. Approval of this article would allow the Board of Selectmen to establish a trust, name trustees to manage those funds. The OPEB fund balance will be transferred to the new OPEB trust. So basically, we're putting all this money away for these other post-employment benefits, and they need to be managed as a separate fund, and this authorizes that fund to be created.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 12? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. I'll remind you that it requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Article 13, Community Preservation Act Amendment. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 13 as printed in the warrant. And you'll note the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Community Preservation Committee all support Article 13. Selectman Kirkbride Brownson, making her debut before
Thank
the
you. And it's just
town meeting.
Brownson. It's just Brownson. Kerper is my legal middle name.
Okay, wow.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is an article which solidifies our commitment through our town meeting 2007 vote to adopt the Community Preservation Act, and then our subsequent vote to expand it to include commercial and industrial properties. What this means is, with respect to any land ownership in town, we are all exempt up to $100,000, but thereafter there's a 1% surcharge assessed to properties to fund the Community Preservation Fund. We have a Community Preservation Committee who's permitted to go ahead and make decisions by way of applications with respect to, let's see, housing, historical preservation, and open space. There's those three categories. There are obligations to assess percentages to those. Excuse me, there's also I'm a little bit nervous, sorry. There's also, subsequent to that, active recreation category, which the Community Preservation Committee can allot money to. So this article before you tonight is asking for your continued support and to expand our base. We are now having this 1% surcharge, but we can get state matching funds to the tune of 2%. So if we put $150,000 in, the state would give to us $300,000. So we are potentially, with this next step and the mile marker to get to sort of full funding for this, we're asking the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the Community Preservation Committee are all asking for your support on this article. I think I summed it up. I have no more words.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 13? If not, we can proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries by a unanimous vote, and I so declare. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Article 14. This is a general bylaw amendment. It requires a simple majority vote, and it has to do with the manner of authorizing indebtedness. Moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 14 as printed in the warrant. Selectman McCurdy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This would amend the town's general bylaws that we have all come to know and love here, of the ballot and checklist, and how we handle it when there is a unanimous vote. And this would make an amendment to the satisfaction of bond counsel. And I would leave it to the moderator to explain further.
Okay. Now, is there anyone else who wishes to speak to Article 14? I can briefly explain. As you know, when we have a borrowing article, if we don't get a unanimous vote, then we do the ballot and checklist vote. Our tradition over many years, my predecessor and probably his predecessors determined that if we have a unanimous vote, we satisfied the ballot and checklist by having one voter cast a specimen ballot, thereby satisfying the bylaw. And bond counsel apparently felt that was a little too quirky of a process and asked us to clarify it with a further vote at town meeting. So essentially, we don't have any borrowing articles here. We probably will have some in the future, certainly next spring. It requires a 2/3 vote. If it's less than a unanimous vote, then we're going to do the ballot and checklist, and we'll have that nice 30 to 45-minute break that we've all come to enjoy. If it's a unanimous vote, under this new amended bylaw, the moderator could declare the vote to be unanimous, and we could still do the specimen ballot if we wanted to. We wouldn't be obligated to. The vote could be declared to satisfy the 2/3 majority in that fashion. So is there anyone who wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Henry Crystal, Mill Lane. And I'm interested in what you've been saying on this article tonight because it's a little unusual to me. I didn't realize that a unanimous vote by voice on borrowing would allow us to avoid the checklist. I had no idea. This is news to me. So if I understand it correctly, this is an established custom. I don't know whether it's in the law, but it's a custom. So I was really here tonight to argue against the policy of unanimous vote because I come to town meeting for only one reason. I come here to vote. And I don't really want any of my friends, neighbors, anybody knowing why I vote on any article. Now, some of them in the public forum, I guess we have to do that. But when it comes to borrowing, I don't think I need people to know how I decide on a borrowing article. And I really think it should be private. I think all voting should be private. So although I'm probably speaking out of turn here tonight, since that is not the issue on the table, but you can clarify for me that we're in this real world where unless somebody says no, somebody's going to get the ire of all of his neighbors. People are going to look, oh, that guy said no, it's him, you know? And I don't want to be that guy, and I don't think anybody else should be that guy. So for me, 2/3 vote, if you're spending $1 million, we should be able to spend 10 minutes and vote on a ballot. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Jane Crisfield, Mill Lane also. I have to agree with my neighbor here. I think that probably the intent of this is to streamline the voting and make it a little more economical. But regarding a nay vote, you may have people not even reporting in on what their opinion is because of some of the intimidation factor that the previous speaker mentioned. And I think that we have a democratic process, and the secret ballot is a fundamental part of that. And I think when it comes to money voting, people really are more interested in whatever the issue is. So I think that in order to preserve our privilege of democratic voting, we should preserve the secret ballot on these particular issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
As I understand, Jared Elpiori again, as I understand this, it doesn't change the secret ballot if it's a controversial issue and the moderator says we're going to ballot and checklist based on the debate. The only thing this fixes, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a non-controversial borrowing article where 99 or 95% of town meeting is going to support it, and to save the half an hour at the ballot and checklist, you do the unanimous vote, and you go through that little charade, if you will, of the specimen ballot. And all it does is get rid of the specimen ballot and take the unanimous vote as is, right? If there's even one no, you go to ballot and checklist. So really all it is just cleaning up, as the moderator stated, a somewhat quirky process.
Finance Committee.
Just come on out. Thank you. Paul Glavy, Chairman of the Finance Committee. Finance Committee support this article, and I think it's fair to point out or remind that the impetus behind this article was not from any of the town boards. It was bond counsel who advised the town that our bylaws did not reflect a practice that had been in effect for a long period of time and is common in other communities. So as a point of clarification, the bond counsel has recommended this language, and one of the things we're very proud of and fortunate to have in town is a wonderful bond rating, which allows us to do a lot of things with a better financial position and a better return for the investment to the taxpayers. And if all it takes to satisfy bond counsel is clarifying language that it pertains to activity that we're already doing, then I would say we should certainly do that.
All right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alex Pratt, Birch Road. I support this article, but I want to speak to some of the previous speakers' concerns. regarding private voting. My understanding of this article is it won't change anything to address that, but it won't make it worse either. It's addressing a completely separate issue that, as our Finance Committee Chairman just said, would improve our bond rating or could improve our bond rating over time and really hasten some of the more laborious town meeting processes. So while I think privacy is something that we could discuss at a later town meeting, that maybe there's some way out there to address those concerns, I think that this is a sort of different issue that doesn't really speak to that one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak with respect to Article 14? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. It requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion passes, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Article 15. Again, this is a general bylaw amendment with respect to fees. And it's been moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 15 as printed in the warrant. For the Board of Selectmen, Selectman Brownson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is mostly a housekeeping question rather than some overwhelming question that we need to spend any time really debating, in my opinion. This is a way for us to just clean up the language in our bylaw and permit specific fees, instead of being set by this general bylaw, to actually be assessed through the appointing authorities. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Yes, is there anyone that wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Just one question. Is there any limit to how high the selectmen could set these fees? Let's say they didn't want drunk dealers in town and said, oh, it's going to be a $100,000 fee.
Jerry, it will be a $100,000 fee. Thank you for bringing that up. No, I would think that any appointing authority would use reasonable measures to make any sort of choice as to fee.
All right, Town Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, in order for the fee to be a fee and not a tax, the amount that's raised by the fee cannot exceed what it costs the town to provide the service. So that's our standard for reasonableness, and the way we ensure that is that not only does the board that adopts the fee have to go by that standard, but the Board of Selectmen, which approves it, has to make sure that they do.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak regarding Article 15? If not, we'll proceed to a vote, keeping in mind that it requires a simple majority only. All those in favor of the motion as read under Article 15, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. We'll move now to the final article on tonight's warrant, Article 16, a home rule petition regarding the subsidized housing inventory. The motion is moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen that the town vote to approve Article 16 as printed in the warrant. You'll note that the Selectmen do support Article 16, and we'll hear from the Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Ted Doucette.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just before I get into this, I just want to say that there was no collusion in stopping Jenna from speaking tonight. There were 2 articles that were cut that were assigned to her to speak, so she did have a fair shot at everything. Getting to this, so I think over the last few years we've all become familiar with SHI, or Subsidized Housing Index, and the way the 40B law is written now is that once a contractor gets his permit from zoning board, they have up to 3 years to build that. Their permit is good for 3 years. However, all those units that are counted toward the SHI are only good for 1 year. they only are allowed to count the SHI for 1 year, which is the limit that they have to build a building permit. So they have 3 years to build them, but the town can only count them for 1 year. This will change that by home rule petition, which will allow us to count those on our SHI for the full 3 years. I could get into some examples and start naming names, but I think I may have made it clear enough, but if there's any questions, obviously we welcome.
All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak with respect to Article 16? Yes.
So this just shows how crazy 40B is, that a certain developer whose name shall remain nameless gets their permit for their 192 units. They sit on it for a year and a half, and they could file another 40B because they haven't built them, but they still have their permits. And what's the chance of the State House actually allowing us to bring some sanity to all this by letting this pass?
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, through you to Mr. Del Fiore. Yeah, that's really what could happen. It could even be worse. It could be, that someone files their permit and then they go 2.5 years or 2 years and 11 months before they pull their permit, and in the meantime somebody else comes in and pulls, goes through the whole process in that time, and all of a sudden we could have 2 units that put us at the 15 or 18%. So you're right, it's kind of buttoning down a loophole, and we have modeled the language after any other towns, and I'd like to turn it over to either Keith or Town Council to talk to how those home rule petitions have fared.
Mr. Moderator, Keith Bergman, Town Administrator. The language that's in this home rule petition is the same language that the town of Norton passed at its town meeting, and it was heard by the legislature's Joint Committee on Housing last month. That committee is chaired by our state senator, Jamie Eldridge. I testified in favor of Norton's bill and indicated that our town meeting would be taking up a similar measure. But the issues that our town faces are ones that a number of towns face, and that is that the developer has his approvals that he can hold for a longer period of time than the town gets to count those units before the developer must pull the building permits. And it's the Developers Act, not the towns, that says if we can keep the units on for longer than the first 12 months. We don't pull the building permits, the developer does. And the case that we've made to the legislature is that that's not fair, and that and we shouldn't be exposed to falling below 10% and have another 40B swoop in during that period of time. And so we're working on a number of measures to make sure we don't fall below 10%, but submitting this home rule legislation to change the law for Littleton, the way the law is proposed to be changed for a number of communities, is one of the steps we're looking to take.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak with regard to Article 16 and the motion thereunder? Yes, sir. Please come to the center microphone.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. If we pass this tonight, what's the next step?
Okay. All right, Town Administrator Bergman.
Mr. Moderator, through you to the previous speaker, a home rule petition that's adopted by a town meeting then gets filed by our state legislators as a bill at the State House. It then is sort of out of our control at that point. It's up to when the legislature would enact it into law. I should say that just because the town meeting votes to file a petition does not mean that the legislature is compelled to pass it as law. But if there are enough communities asking for the same thing, as we're joining with not only Norton, but with West Boylston and North Andover and a number of communities, our hope is, and we've discussed it with Senator Eldridge, our hope would be that if enough communities are asking for fairness with 40B, that the legislature as a whole might take it up and change the law.
All right. there anyone else that wishes to be heard? If not, we'll proceed to a vote under Article 16. All those in favor of the motion as read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and I declare it a vote. Thank you very much. Before I entertain a motion to dissolve the town meeting, I'd like to once again thank the town administrator and Board of Selectmen for their help. Very good. Also, the town clerk and the assistant town clerk for their help tonight, members of the Finance Committee and our assistant town administrator, finance director. As always, the school department, very generous with the use of the gymnasium, and Littleton Community Television for doing an outstanding job. I'd like to recognize a town employee who will be leaving the town in a matter of a few short days. Our chief assessor, Ken Mildren, who very faithfully can be found in the non-voting section at every town meeting. Ken, if you'd stand up and be recognized. Ken has done an outstanding job as chief assessor, and he'll be hard to replace, and he'll be very greatly missed by all of us. With that, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve. Okay, second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, this town meeting is dissolved.
Nice job, Mr. Moderator.